The Middle East is a complex and complicated place. When it comes to American interests in the region, there's largely bad and worse. I'm Jimmy Sengenberger, President and CEO of the Millennial Policy Center. The bad are those nations that are dictatorial, but at least work largely to advance American interests. The worst countries, like Iran, are those that work hard to go against American interests and to harm our country. This complication has been a big reason why peace in the Middle East has been so unattainable. But what's remarkable right now is how the Trump administration has come in with a very fresh perspective and put forward a plan to achieve peace through prosperity. Ambassador Sam Zaka, Senior Advisor in Foreign Affairs at the Millennial Policy Center, was ambassador from the United States to Bahrain from 1986 to 1989. As the first Gulf War was about to break out, then President George H.W. Bush asked Ambassador Zakhem to return and oversee the diplomatic affairs in the war effort.
Obama was a fiasco for our national interest in the Middle East. He alienated the Arabs greatly. That's why they rejoiced when they had Mr. Trump. And now, as you well know, they are buying our products. They are so supportive. Mohammed bin Salman calls himself an American, as a matter of fact. King Hamad of Bahrain would tell me at the height of the Iran-Iraq war, when we needed facilities in the Gulf to service our Navy and to help the reflagging operations, he told me, Mr. Ambassador, if America needs it, take it. Even if I told you no, take it, and I pretend I did not see. This is the kind of friends we have among the Arabs in the Gulf. Some countries there, because of their political system, and because of their religious endeavors or their support for Islamic groups, they have supported Hamas, or they have supported Hezbollah, or they have supported ISIS. Unfortunately, in Arabic it's called Daesh. And but officially the governments are all on our side.
For decades, American policymakers have thought that peace in the Middle East could only be achieved with peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians coming first. Then it would spread across the region. But the Trump administration understands that that approach has not worked and is determined to do it differently. Samuel Lourie is a Foreign Affairs Fellow at the Millennial Policy Center and one of the lead authors of our new paper on the Middle East Peace Plan.
Previous administrations had always focused on trying to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and then normalizing relations between Israel and the broader Arab world. Well, the Trump administration has kind of turned that idea on its head, Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, and others, and have been working behind the scenes to bring the Arab powers, especially in the Gulf, together with Israel and really get their buy-in and support and build those relations out more, and then be able to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
You know, when you have something to lose, you would think twice about it. Now they feel they don't have much, but if the President Trump goes ahead with his policies of strengthening the economy on the West Bank and even in Gaza, despite the presence of Hamas there, I think the people's attitude will change to the positive and would be more likely to accept a peace accord between them and the Israelis.
So in the economic part of the plan, they want to raise $50 billion of foreign direct investment into the Israeli, the Palestinian economy, and then also the Lebanese, Jordanian, and Egyptian economies, so that there can be more integration broadly between all of those. But they want to provide the capital necessary for businesses to flourish, for job creation. They're doing this across all sectors of the economy. They're also trying to work on governance issues, property rights, rule of law, things like that, so that the investments can be safe and the investors can rest assured that their investment's protected. The economic component of the plan is so important because of a lot of the poverty, a lot of the challenges in these countries, in the Palestinian territories and in Jordan, Lebanon, and Egypt. So providing this capital and giving people the opportunity to have a better life and to prosper, things that we really believe in at the Millennial Policy Center, that people will be more likely to want to choose peace instead of choosing terrorism if we provide the necessary economic incentives.
The Trump administration's strategy of achieving peace in the Middle East through regional economic stability and prosperity is a game-changing paradigm shift, and it really holds tremendous potential for success.
This is unprecedented what's happening, right? I mean, for decades, U.S. policymakers, European policymakers have been trying to bring these worlds together, have failed. We've seen terrorism, we've seen wars, we've seen so many problems. But with this new approach that we're seeing a thawing of relations, a rapprochement between Israel and Saudi Arabia and Oman and the UAE and all these other countries. And just to even have these high-level collaborations and discussions and business deals and different things going on, it's a huge development. So I think that in and of itself shows that we're on the right trajectory.
Much of the support for the Palestinians come from Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and if those states are on our side and would go for a peaceful settlement, then they will be very effective in convincing the Palestinians that that's the way to go. And yes, President Trump is right on in his policies.
There's an organization I'd learned about through this process called the Zaytun Ventures, and basically what they do, it was founded by an Israeli and a Palestinian partner, and they bring investment together from venture capital, many different kinds of big investors, and channel it into the startup ecosystem that's developing between Israelis and Palestinians. And part of the condition for them to invest is that it's companies run by Israelis and Palestinians, so that they're working together, and not only are they creating business and jobs and investment, but they're also creating coexistence and peace. And so ultimately, I think the more this plan can fund those types of business ventures, the more prosperous both parties will be.
It seems to me that this is all about stability in the region, and then if you have stability, then that means that there's more opportunities to foster peace.
Absolutely. The better life that that millennials over there have, if they have good paying jobs, if they have flourishing businesses, the less likely they're going to want to go to war with Israel or to support terrorism and lose what they have. When you have, a good life, you have a good paying job, a good business, healthcare taken care of, good education, those kinds of things, you have a lot more at stake. If you were to go to war or if you were to go to terrorism, you could lose everything that's there, and that's why terrorism thrives in environments of poverty. If you're improving the lives of millions of people like this plan has the potential to do, it's going to be much more likely that you can reach a political solution and have peace. And that's what we're beginning to see.
It hasn't taken long, but we're already starting to see some positive developments coming from the Trump administration's new approach to peace in the Middle East. One of the important things that this administration understands that previous ones did not is that we cannot succeed in bringing peace to the Middle East by exporting American values. This kind of policy helps to explain the Iraq War. Let's bring democracy to the Middle East, and that will bring about peace. Instead, the Trump administration understands that we must export economic principles so that there's a lasting reason for peace to remain in the Middle East and for stability to help bring it about.
So I think it's very important in international relations to understand that we first have to look at where countries' interests align and where we can work together from there. And then hopefully we lead by example, that the values we espouse in America, other countries will want to adopt that because they can see that we have a better way of life. But we start by building on the common interests that we have economically, militarily, and in those different areas, those different ways that we can cooperate to counter the threats from terrorism, work together on deepening trade and business relations. And then from there, we're seeing that these countries are opening up more economically. We're seeing more economic freedom that's taking root. And ultimately, that's going to be a good thing for everybody involved.
We have for 70 years given Israel upward of $4 billion, sometimes $8 billion a year. Because of the situation they're in, surrounded by powers that were alien to their system, and some groups against the very survival of Israel. This situation has changed recently quite a bit, maybe because of Mr. Trump and his strong stand against Iran, and his support for especially His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman. There are more and more open doors for detente or understanding between the Arabs and Israel now. Now, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Mohammed bin Zayed, is very open. He's the guy who said, let's have the Abrahamic Center, a synagogue, a church, and a mosque, all in one area to show the unity of the people of the book. It's so beautiful for a Muslim country to build a church officially by the government and to build a synagogue. There has been a great change in the relationship between Israel and the Arab countries, particularly of the Gulf, after the election of Mr. Trump.
Yeah, I think it's a remarkable development. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, traveling and meeting with the Sultan of Oman, the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, coming out and saying that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state, and discussing the possibility of visiting. I think those are very positive developments. There's also been a lot of trade that's been happening largely under the table at this point, but we're hoping that that's going to come more and more into the light. I saw a recent study that the Tony Blair Institute did, and they said that there's at least $1 billion worth of exports that Israel has been sending to a lot of these Gulf Arab countries. A lot of these countries want to access Israel's expertise in the high-tech sector, intelligence, military services, and other high-tech things. So I think there's just remarkable developments there, and really they have a lot of the same shared enemies, whether it be radical terrorism or whether it be from Iran. The countries are really finding common ground, and I think it's a very encouraging development.
The King of Bahrain, King Hamad, appointed a Jewish lady as ambassador for the United States in Washington. Huda Nunu, a dear friend of mine, and her whole family were friends of mine when I was in Bahrain. And he appointed a Christian woman as ambassador in London. The two most important embassies were led by a Jewish lady and a Christian lady. So there is hope.
Obviously, one of the incentives to engage in terrorism and become affiliated with terrorist groups is if you are impoverished, you don't see other ways out, and then you have this religious message that draws you in. How do you think the economic prosperity that this plan would hopefully bring about could disincentivize millennials and younger people who are in the Middle East from starting to get involved in terrorist groups in the future?
I mean, the State Department, the government's done many research studies, and it's pretty conclusive that terrorist groups thrive where there's poverty, where there's low education, low literacy rates. They thrive on preying on people like that to enlist them in their cause of Allah or whatever they're claiming to stand for. So the more we can expose them to education, increase the literacy rates, increase the economic opportunities, the less likely they are going to want to join these terrorist organizations. When we present these business opportunities, and they just see that peace is going to be a all-around better solution for them to work between the Israelis and the Arabs working together, they're going to see it's going to create a more prosperous future.
When President Trump moved the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, all these so-called experts thought that all hell would break loose in the Middle East. But it didn't happen. I mean, that's why no previous president had ever moved the embassy, because they thought all hell would break loose. Yet this is a clear demonstration of why President Trump's approach to the Middle East, his unprecedented strategy, is working.
In that region of the world, if you fail to show your strength and your determination, they have no respect for you. Under Trump, they have respect for us. They know that we mean what we say, and we say what we mean, and we will implement that policy regardless of the repercussions or what may happen. They respect you when they show your determination and to stay the course. You know, American flag, American colors do not run. We stay the course. We stayed the course under Mr. Reagan when we reflagged the tankers and told the Iranians, thou shalt not deny the freedom of navigation in international waters. And Mr. Trump is doing exactly what, and more than what Mr. Reagan did.
So you've got the United States backing Saudi Arabia in Yemen against Iran, which they certainly appreciate.
And the Houthis.
Yes. And so when it comes to fostering those relations with the Arab countries and having a summit, like, for example, particularly on economics, they had a summit in Bahrain. What do you think about things like the summit and bringing these countries together for meetings and having conversations, especially about the economic side of things, but really showing them that we are active in supporting American interests in the region, and American interests clearly are contrary to Iranian interests?
Many want to go visit Israel. The Gulf region is really very friendly now. All the Gulf Cooperation Council states are very friendly with Israel. All because what Mr. Trump is doing and has done, and hopefully because some good minds are coming to power in that region of the world, saying, well, 70 years of hostilities haven't done anything for them or for the Israelis. Israel has to realize also that the hatred and throw them in the sea attitude that existed soon after 1948 is no longer the policy of the Arab countries. Jordan has made peace with Israel. Lebanon would love to make peace with Israel if Israel, they tell me, grants them Mazari' Shib'a, the farms of Shib'a.
It might not surprise you to know that here at the Millennial Policy Center, we're all about policy impacts on millennials. And when it comes to President Trump's approach to policy in the Middle East, this won't just have a positive impact on millennials in the Middle East, but it will also benefit extraordinarily American millennials.
So first, for American millennials, I mean, this is in America's interest. This is America's future that we're talking about here. American millennials want to see peace in the world, you know, and we want to see less wars and fights with terrorism. So the more that we can stabilize things now, the better future American millennials could have. And the more we can develop the commerce and business relations, the more jobs it's going to inevitably create for American millennials as well.
Now, how about millennials in the Middle East? What's the benefit to them?
For millennials in the Middle East, a lot of them are leading startup companies, you know, high tech, a lot of different sectors, and but they need capital. They don't have the access to the credit markets and banking and different things that we take for granted here in the United States. So providing this kind of foreign direct investment into their businesses is really just lifeblood into their business, into their livelihood. And so really it's going to create more opportunity. It's going to create better educational opportunities, better health care, better rule of law, court systems, so forth. So it's just going to create an all-around better quality of life, the more investment that can be provided over there.
As I talk to Arabs and Israelis, friends of mine, there is a changing attitude among both of them, and God willing, there will be peace with the economic policies and the strong foreign policy by the Trump administration. Eventually, God willing, we're going to come to a situation where Jews and Gentiles, or, you know, they're all Abrahamic. Yeah, you know, they're all of the same race, the Jews and the Arabs. And eventually, I hope that all those Semitic people will get together and live in peace.
As we've talked about, the Middle East is a very complicated place. And especially when we're talking about terrorism, there will always be ups and downs in the region. But fortunately, there's cause for hope. And that hope is being realized. To learn more, check out our research at millennialpolicycenter.org.